Hi, my name is Sydney Slzinski, and I will be talking to you about the New York School of Poetry. So, this is a movement that happened in the 1950s and the 1960s in New York City. And not only did this movement include poets, but it also included musicians, dancers, and other types of artists. Um, these people were very abstract in their expressions. They believed in something called stream of consciousness writing, which is basically where you just write whatever you think without much revision. Their work included a lot of vivid imagery, and they were heavily inspired by Surrealism, in particular French Surrealists. And the New York School movement was a reaction to the plain, violent, and rigid confessionalist movement that the New York School poets hated and wanted to be completely opposite of. So, some of the major poets that were included in the New York School of Poetry were Frank O'Hara, and he was born in 1926 and died in 1966, and he was considered the leader of the movement. And he took the name, the New York School, from other artists and musicians and just expanded it to poetry. John Ashbery was another major poet of the time. He was born in 1927 and is still alive today. And he was a very self reflective, and he used lots of allusions in his poetry. And he is credited for winning almost every major American poetry award ever made. Barbara Guest is another major poet, and she was born in 1920 and died recently in 2006. And she not only wrote poems, but also had numerous paintings in different magazines, and she wrote poems to narrate her own paintings. There were 14 poets that were considered to be true New York style poets, although there were other poets that had similar writing styles. All of the New York school poets were very liberal in their views. 13 out of 14 of them attended Harvard University. 13 out of 14 of them were homosexual. 13 out of 14 of them served in the military. Almost all of them reviewed some kind of art, whether it was paintings, drawings, sculptings, music, dance, and most of them were also New York natives. This poem, Homosexuality, was written by the leader of the New York School, Frank O'Hara. So we are taking off our masks, are we, and keeping our mouths shut, as if we've been pierced by a glance. The song of an old cow is not more full of judgment than the vapors which escape one's soul when one is sick. So I pull the shadows around me like a puff, and crinkle my eyes, as if at the most exquisite moment of a very long opera, and then we are off, without reproach, and without hope that our delicate feet will touch the earth again, let alone very soon. It is the law of my own voice I shall investigate. I start like ice, my finger to my ear to my heart, that proud cur at the garbage can in the rain. It's wonderful to admire oneself with complete candor, tallying up the merits of each of the latrines. 14th Street is drunken and credulous. 53rd tries to tremble, but is too at rest. The good love, a park, and the inept a railway station. And there are the divine ones who will drag themselves up and down the lengthening shadow of an Abyssinian head in the dust, trailing their long, elegant heels of hot air, crying to confuse the brave. It is a summer day, and I want to be wanted more than anything else in this world. So, the who in this poem is a homosexual man, possibly Frank O'Hara, reflecting about his own life experiences and what it is like to be judged for being gay. The what, he is talking about his experiences and thoughts about coming out to the world and not hiding behind who he truly is. The when, he is expressing his feelings during the prime of his life, and he is very deep in his thoughts. He possibly could have written this to bring awareness to the discrimination of homosexuals and the want and need for equality across the board. The subject of this poem is homosexuality. The theme is acceptance of yourself and for others, and the idea of self-exploration. Also, it touches on longing to be able to be your true authentic self and not having to hide behind something that you're not, and being able to show the world who you really are. It's organized in couplets, however, they do not rhyme. Some symbols in this poem include summer, which is a symbol for the prime of life. The masks he mentioned in the first couplet symbolize the act of hiding behind who he really is and pretending to be someone he is not. When he talks about the old cow's opinion, he could be referring to how old people come from a different and less accepting generation, so they might have a very harsh view on homosexuality. His reference to sickness during the 1950s and 1960s, homosexuality was considered to be a mental illness, and it wasn't until 1975 that it was lifted. When he says finger to ear, ear to heart, he is symbolizing that he listens to how he feels, he thinks about it, and then he lets his heart guide him in the direction that he thinks he should go in. The reference to 14th Street and 53rd Avenue is where one of the very first gay rights protests was held in New York, and it was a big moment in history.